Everybody, welcome in to another edition of PTN Live, our preview show, as we are just a little bit away from Arkansas versus LSU. That game tipping off in just about an hour, 2:30. You can catch it on ESPN. Right now, we also have Alabama playing Tennessee. It's a really close one. I could try and look at the TV over there.
48-45.
48-45. That's Mike on the other end of the microphone. We're going to get to him in just a second as we're going to break down this game. Of course, make sure to comment any of your questions or anything you want to say right there on the Facebook comment section, and we will try and answer anything that you have. But without further ado, let's welcome in our Mike Irwin, who watched a lot of everything yesterday's game, a lot of thoughts, but let's just start on breaking down these two teams, Arkansas versus LSU. What do you see out of each program?
First of all, just like yesterday when I talked about if I were a Missouri fan, I would be disappointed in the regular season. Same thing with LSU. There were a lot of people thought they had the talent to win it or at least finish second, and they were in second for a long time, but Arkansas went all the way down from the second half division below way into the first half of the conference and then climbed all the way into second place, went past LSU and 2 full games into second place. So how did this happen? Well, if you start breaking these two teams down, LSU finished third in the SEC with 11-6 record. Arkansas was 11-6. No, LSU was 11-6. Arkansas was 13-4, and they were second. Points per game. This is interesting. LSU second in the SEC at 82.4 points per game. Arkansas first at 82.8. The difference is Arkansas has played better defense, and they're winning their games by an average of 12.4 points per game, whereas LSU at 7.1. But then if you look at all these other categories, it would seem to favor LSU, only it's close. LSU's first in shooting, Arkansas's fourth. LSU's fourth in three-point shooting, Arkansas's fifth. LSU's third in free throw shooting, Arkansas's fourth. LSU's fifth in rebounding, Arkansas seventh, so there's a one edge for Arkansas. Steals, LSU fourth, Arkansas fifth. Then if you go down and break down these two teams and who scores for them, each team, unlike yesterday, we talked about Missouri only had 3 guys averaging in double figures for the season. LSU has 4, just like Arkansas. But there's a big difference in what those 4 are scoring and what Arkansas's 4s are scoring. 67.9 points per game of LSU's 82.8 is by those 4 guys, and only 53.7 points per game out of Arkansas's scoring 82.4, so or 82.8. So the real difference between these two teams is LSU tends to get most of its scoring from 4 guys, and they have almost no bench, and Arkansas has a much deeper bench that scores more points per game. And as we start looking at the 2 games, the first game, for instance, even though LSU dominated that game and won it big, Arkansas's bench outscored LSU 43-10. That's a big number. And the second game, 29-13, which Arkansas won. Now, what we get into when we look at these 2 games is almost exactly what we looked at Missouri, that the difference between the 2 games was one guy, Justin Smith. Let's look at what happened in that first game. LSU outscored Arkansas 48-38, 4 in the paint. Arkansas shot 31 threes, way too many, only hit 8 of them. LSU out-rebounded Arkansas 48-39. In the second game, the big difference, Arkansas only had 3 guys in double figures in the first game, 4 in the second game, and that 4th guy was Justin Smith, who, oh, by the way, scored 19 points and 10 rebounds. If you have a guy that didn't play in the first game and he jumps up and scores 19 and 10 in the second game, that's going to make a difference. So Arkansas wins in all these categories. They outscored LSU in the paint. They shot 23 pointers instead of 31, and they hit 6. It was LSU that was forced into shooting all the 3-pointers, 28, and they only hit 9. Arkansas out-rebounds LSU 45-39, and as we said, they outscored them with the bench. So again, the big difference to me in these 2 games that were played in regular season was Justin Smith. Now he's playing today, and as we break down today's game, he can't play the way he did yesterday and be on the bench because he's got Two of LSU's top 4 scorers are forwards, not guards. They're guys that score inside. And he's going to be going up against 2 guys that can score a lot of points, and he can't be the Lone Ranger. And yet we know Jalen Williams is out for this game too. So who does that leave to help him out? Well, it means either Connor Vanover is going to have to come off the bench, or maybe he'll start, but he's going to have to be more of a factor than he has been. And the thing about Vanover is who knows what he's going to do. He has games where he plays really well. Then he has games where he either disappears or doesn't do much, because after they play him for 3 or 4 minutes, Coach Musselman looks at him and goes, nah, he's not going to be a factor in this game. The pace is too quick. The inside guys are quicker than he is. This isn't a game we're going to play him. And so he spends most of the time on the bench. So who does that leave? Ethan Henderson.
Who had a great game as a spark plug. 4 points, but 2 of them monstrous dunks, 2 blocks in that game. So yeah, he really provided what they needed out of that absence.
He didn't do a lot in terms of statistics. He had no rebounds. But here's what he did. He controlled those 2 bigs while he was in the game. They weren't a big scoring factor. So when you can do that, if you can do it in this game, then that helps. But who knows if he can put together back-to-back games like that. I mean, the other thing is, Note jumps up when Jalen Tate is not scoring and Moses Moody is not scoring, and Note comes in and scores 28. Well, you can't expect him to do that 2 games in a row. So you need Arkansas's point guard, Jalen Tate, starting point guard, to score more points, and you need a better game from Moses Moody. All of those things will be a factor today.
Let's break it down. J.D. Note, his best game as a Razorback, a season high 27 points. Not his career high. He had 3 games above that while at Jacksonville. And you talk about Justin Smith, Mike, who had 13 of his 16 points in the second half. And Moses Moody, 5 points, matching his season low. He did that both against Auburn and Ole Miss this season. So 5 points, his season low. But it's really nice when your best player isn't playing his best and you still come out with a win.
Yeah, I just don't think you can win this game. I just think LSU is better than Missouri. I don't think you can win this game I think Jalen Tate has to score. I think Moses Moody has to score. And I think Justin Smith has to stay in the game. Anybody that gets people in foul trouble is going to be in trouble in this game either way, either team.
Now, I'll say what we saw last night against Missouri, I don't think it's going to happen again. Moses Moody taking 5 charges. Each team had like 20 fouls. But you break down, Tillman was in foul trouble and then fouled out. Also, their other big man from Missouri was in foul trouble. He was well fouled out. So there was a lot of size that they could abuse Arkansas in that last game. That might be a little harder here when you have Darius Day, Trendon Watford. He had 24 points last night. Day put up 20 points, 12 rebounds for a double-double. You go back to that last game in Fayetteville between these 2 teams. Day was held scoreless, 0 of 8 shooting. And yesterday in the press conference, he told the media, for the fans, to bring their popcorn because he is going to play against Arkansas. It really feels like that's a game that they could have won had he, say, hit 4 or 5 of those shots. So this one's going to be even if Moody plays well and everything's firing, it's going to be a great game. First SEC win for LSU in the tournament since 2016.
Again, LSU doesn't have much of a bench. One way I could see Arkansas really benefiting is if the refs continue to call this game the way they're calling it, the same way in this Alabama-Tennessee game. I've never seen this before. They are calling blocks, charges. I'm telling you, go back and look. You can't, just because you're moving doesn't necessarily mean that it's a block, but most of the time when you're moving as a defender and you make contact with the ball dribbler, the guy dribbling the ball, it's going to be a foul on you. And I don't know, you can see sometimes the shoulder lean in, maybe a little bit with the offside hand, but I'm telling you, they called some charges in that Arkansas-Missouri game that were blocks, and I've seen a couple in this one. That's one of the reasons Alabama was able to come back. They were down 12 points early in the second half and came back and almost caught up just on 3 straight possessions where they were calling charges. So that could work in Arkansas's favor. because what these defenders are doing in the inside is they're just dropping to the floor every time somebody dribbles past them.
Jimmy from Tyler, Texas says Woo Pig Suey. John Blazer as well. Hello, everyone. If you have any questions for Mike or myself, type them into the comments section. Mike, we mentioned all of the fouls. Is that the one correction you think Arkansas needs to clean up heading to this game? Is to play a little bit of cleaner basketball?
Yeah, you don't want your key players to get into foul trouble like they did yesterday. But again, it's how they're calling this game. They're calling more fouls inside, and they're allowing a lot of bumping on the outside in particular. And it's a new interpretation this year, which we've seen all season. Talked about it yesterday, where they're allowing defenders to jump out and bump the ball dribbler, the guy dribbling the ball as he's going around on the perimeter, and allowing him to be controlled through contact, which to me, by the definition of the rules and the way I've always seen basketball, you cannot gain an advantage through contact. If you do, it's a foul. And that's out the window this year.
Arkansas, LSU, that game being played at 2:30. You can catch it on ESPN. Right now, I think the update for the Alabama game, I know we're going a little bit off track, but I think it's 53-49, or no, that's actually wrong. I got to update my brackets. Do you see it, Mike, on the TV over there?
57-51, so Tennessee's jumped back up. 57-51
Tennessee, obviously, that's who the winner of Arkansas LSU will play. Let's see, the last time these two teams met, it was 87-75, an Arkansas win at home. But those LSU 4 scores in double digits, that's a talented backcourt. You're going to go with Cameron Thomas, who has averaging about 24 points, 22 points a game. Most talented backcourt they might see this season, or at least so far in the postseason. You mentioned the size. Do you have a prediction of how you think this game, the outcome of this one's going to end up?
You're the guy that's going to do predictions. I can already tell because you like it. I
love it.
I hate doing predictions because it's this thing is such, it's like going and whatever that thing is in gambling where you throw that little thing, marble down and
roulette.
Wheel. I mean, to me, this is just that, you don't know what the heck, what's going to happen. I will say this. I like Arkansas the way they're playing right now. They sort of have the mentality of the baseball team where they just figure out a way to win when you think they're going to get beat.
But it hurts your heart at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, there is such a thing as guys believing they're not going to lose no matter what. So until they do lose, I'm going to assume they're going to continue to win.
Now, I know we got this question yesterday, and Joshua and Michael are asking it, kind of the same question. If Arkansas can win the tournament, what seed do you think they would jump to?
Well, they definitely would jump to a 2. But by beating Alabama, they might swap with Alabama. And Alabama is the top ranked in these projections 2 seed. So if any of the 1 seeds kind of slip up in their conference tournaments, you could see if Arkansas won the SEC tournament, maybe the 4th 1 seed.
And if Alabama loses this game right now to Tennessee, that's kind of a given you jump up.
Yeah, you would definitely jump past them then if you keep winning.
And makes your SEC championship game a little bit easier. If you were to draw Tennessee, and then you're in a conversation of, well, can we make a 1? That's probably set in stone for some of those top teams. But I think, best case scenario, you're probably getting a high 2.
Yeah, definitely.
And if Alabama does hold on, then that's the game. If Arkansas and Alabama were to meet in the championship game, Josh, I think that the winner of that one gets that 2, and the loser gets the 3, unless some other crazy things are happening in other conference tournaments. But that's I think, and that's kind of the bridge that you always cross when you get there, because as you saw yesterday, I mean, there's no guarantees. I mean, Ole Miss was fighting for a bubble spot, and they almost got it. That could have switched the tournament up around, but would have made this game a little bit easier for Arkansas. But any other questions, guys, type them into the Facebook chat. We're about 15 minutes in. We'll go a little bit longer, so if you have any other final thoughts, make sure to put them in. But Mike, have you seen anything special out of this tournament? Do you think the venue being neutral but not really having any fans is hurting, helping?
Normally what happens in Nashville is Kentucky dominates everything because it's so close to Kentucky, first of all, and because they have the biggest traveling fan base. When Nolan was at Arkansas, Razorback fans traveled to Dallas where the conference tournament was. They would have more fans than Texas or anybody. because it's pretty close to Arkansas anyway, Dallas is. And there's a lot of people in Arkansas that are kind of from that part of Texas, so people go home and visit relatives. It was an amazing thing to see when you saw that old Reunion Arena, and it was about 2/3 Arkansas fans and about 1/3 Texas or anybody else. It's not like that in the SEC. Arkansas fans don't travel in basketball the way they did back in those days. But they probably had about as big a showing yesterday as anybody not named Kentucky, and Kentucky's out. So I would say that while this has been a strange year in that I think it's proven, you can go look at statistically, it's been easier to win on the road this year. There's no question. But now we're into these neutral type games, and I just don't think the crowd is a factor one way or the other in this conference tournament.
Yeah, the players were saying, Devo Davis said yesterday in the press conference that it felt like he was playing a game at the Bud last night. Now, you're right. You're right. There's not going to be as many fans. Now, there were Arkansas fans, and you never know. A Saturday game, maybe can you draw some more? But then again, there's going to be a cap limit to that. But if you get one fan in there, that's better than having no fans in there, right? So
absolutely.
So that's kind of what the atmosphere is going to be. Is, hey, Razorback fans, they traveled last night to get that game. Maybe they got tickets for the whole weekend. I'm not really sure the capacity of that arena, but hey, any fans are better than none. Mike, as we're winding this down, any final thoughts on this matchup that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, I just think that the key is what happens inside. Justin Smith has to stay out of foul trouble. He's got to have a big game. He's got to have some help from either Connor Vanover or Ethan Henderson. Can't do it by himself. So that's the key thing to watch for, is what happens inside in this game.
Yeah, and I think my final thought, same thing, is attack, attack, attack. Go after those big men. Try and get them to play softer defense, get them with 3 fouls, bench them in the first half, and just go straight for the rim, because that's their identity. The 3 ball is not always their identity. And that is it. We got ESPN 2:30, Arkansas, LSU for a spot in tomorrow's championship game. Or Alabama, Tennessee right now battling out to see who will get the other spot. And then obviously we have Selection Sunday coming up tomorrow. Those are when all your guys' questions about 3 seeds and 2 seeds will be answered. Mike, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Now, as we just take one final look at this, here is how you're going to watch it right there. 2:30 ESPN. That's 2:30 Central Time. So we got about, 1:47 right now here in Fayetteville. So we got a little bit of time, but if they keep winning, we're going to keep doing these PTN lives. So if we have another game tomorrow, we will see you then.